Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast, and my absolute pleasure to welcome all the way from, well, a little bit outside Boise, Idaho, coming in on I was going to say a Thursday, but it's Thursday here, a Wednesday afternoon. Mandy Keene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Darren. I'm excited to be here.
We're just talking before we press record and looking forward to this. You are the co-founder of understandingpersonality.com. You have over, get this, you have over 40,000 coaching hours with high performing leaders. You've worked with people like Tony Robbins. You're part of Russell Brunson's inner circle. You're doing a lot of coaching with him. You've actually personally coached Russell and his wife, and you're a gun. So I'm looking forward to this.
Oh,
We're gonna talk about lots of stuff from a coaching and a leadership point of view, and particularly around assessments. So, as we said before the podcast started, we roll how we roll. There's no real questions that I've got other than love to delve into a little bit about your past to begin with, and what you've done and what led you down this path. Did you wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to be a leadership coach, and I'm going to focus really heavily on personality assessments, other assessments. How did it all
yeah.
start?
Thank you for asking that. And I love how you do your show, Darren. So I just know we're going to have so much fun. I bet everyone has an experience of thank goodness this happened, dot, dot, dot. Uh, I was working for Tony Robbins in his admin department. I was working on his sales team doing admin. And
Hmm.
Darren, you do not want Mandy ever doing admin. I was terrible at it. I don't know if you've ever had a job where you sucked at it, but nothing like eats at your self-esteem uh like doing a job that you suck at. And it was one of the first times in my life that I was asking myself, am I dumb? Like, what's wrong with me? Because I kept making mistakes. And being with your background in sales, you see the dark side of humanity. When you mess up a salesperson's commission, oh, wow. So Tony Robbins opened up a coaching department. And when he opened up his coaching department, it was one of those moments like Rudy wanting to play for Notre Dame. I knew I wanted to do it. It made no sense at all because I was 19 at the time and, you know, sucking at my job. My self-esteem was in the gutter, but here I want to be a Tony Robbins coach. It made no sense at all. But I decided to apply, and because I had connections within the company, they allowed me to apply. And I was not going to get hired as a coach. In fact, I got told by the trainers and the people who were doing the training, you're not going to get hired. You're not going to make it. And
Yeah.
I was stubborn and going, I have to do this. But that didn't feel good to hear. In the training, they had a man by the name of Robert Alderman. I always love to give credit where credit is due. He introduced Tony to the DISC assessment. And
Hmm.
then he trained all of us who were applying to being a Tony Robbins coach. And this was back in 2000. So we
Okay.
didn't have like the smartphones and everything. So we all had our DISC reports just printed out on paper. And then Robert, he was a very tall man. He kind of looked like Tommy Lee Jones. He was intense, very serious. We were all like scared of him and intimidated. And he was reading he did their DISC and their values, and he was reading them, and he was just cutthroat. Like, I don't know if you'd make a good coach because of this and this. I'm concerned because and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up. I was so nervous. I was not trying to be funny, but it ended up being funny. I gave him my DISC results and I like bowed as I did it because I didn't want to look him in the eyes. And everybody started laughing because it was like I broke the ice because I was like shaking and giving it to him. And I'll always remember this moment in my life because it was pivotal. Is Robert looked at my DISC results. He looked at me and I'm just like not breathing, trying not to puke. And he looked at my DISC results, he looked at me and he said, you'd make a great coach.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was just like a knee-jerk reaction. I asked him, how come I sucked at admin? And this very serious tall man that everybody was like intimidated of, he let out this weird giggle that like surprised us. He was like, you in admin? And it was like, we all were like, did that just happen? And he said, you'd be terrible at admin. And I go, I was. And so that's what hooked me, Darren, is I was like, I've never met this man. He looked at just a bar graph of results of assessment I took. I was only 21 years old, and I thought, this stranger knows more about me than I know about me.
Mm.
I've got to find out more. And that is what just made me geek out on DISC. And I started studying and reading the reports and asking so many questions. And that's what got me hired at Tony Robbins. I know without the DISC assessment, there's no way they would have hired me. But
Yeah.
because I geeked out about it and I knew and I understood, oh, if you're a high D, I need a bottom line and I need to get right to the point. I need to not, I learned how to communicate differently with different personality types.
Yeah.
And that's what made me shine at such a young age with such little life experience as a coach. So that's
Wow.
what got me started.
Now let me guess. There was an I in your disc assessment.
There was a what? Oh
There
yeah,
was an
there's a
I.
very high eye, just like you, Darren. Very high eye.
Because you're not going to
Yeah.
be a C if if you don't like
No, my
it.
my C was 1, so you can imagine. I see my C is very low. I'm a high IS. I like to say that us ISs, SIs are like the golden retrievers
Yeah.
because we're so people oriented and we want everyone to like us. We want to serve. So that's my personality type.
There's a bit of shiny thing syndrome in there as well, though, isn't there?
Oh yeah, for sure. With the high I. Are you kidding?
Speaking from experience.
Exactly. That's why I
So
like you don't plan this too much.
no, and it's just organic and it just happens. I think everything's going to happen for a reason, and let's just have some fun when we do it.
I love
So,
it.
so you got into you obviously got into the coaching team at Tony Robbins. So the coaching experience with that, how has that sort of shaped you now? Throwing in disc with that, how has it shaped you? Because you've done over 40,000 coaching hours. You're well known in the industry, and you work with some big hitters. How did that eventuate? Because you wouldn't have woken up one day and say, "Oh, let me go and talk to Russell Brunson and start coaching
Yeah,
him, and then coaching his inner
yeah.
circle team."
Oh yeah, no, that's not my nature. So what happened was, I like to share with clients that, whenever we take an action, there's always some sort of ripple effect that happens no matter what. And it's not up to us how it's going to look. That's why I say
Mm.
you could never lose. You can't make a mistake if you keep putting yourself out there and taking action. And I like to tell the story of I wrote a book that I don't recommend, Darren, because it's dated, but I wrote a book called Rich Coach, Broke Coach, kind of off of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
And it was like a manual at the time of like coaching. And I posted it on Facebook, and a friend of mine, Robbie Summers, who I went to high school with, go Huskies, he saw that I had written this book on coaching, which, by the way, I sold like less than 50 copies because I just didn't, I sucked at marketing and I didn't know how to promote it. And I'm like telling people, don't get it now. But because I wrote that book, you know how if you're an author, people immediately, there's a lot more respect.
Yeah.
That one book, even though I didn't sell very many copies, was enough for Robbie to go, oh, she must really know what she's doing as a coach. And he liked me from high school. We had some rapport from that because we were friends. And then he was working for Russell, and he connected me with Russell. And I'm so grateful that he did, because when he connected me with Russell, I had Russell take the disc. Russell was
Yep.
like, what are you having me do? And I'm like, just do it, Russell. Just take it. And so he took the disc assessment. I read his results. He was like, whoa. And then I had him, he had his wife Colette take them, and I gave them both the session of, okay, so this is probably why you're attracted to each other, how you get along. This is probably what you clash on, and what's probably annoys you about Russell. And this is probably what annoys you about Colette. This is how I would, modify your communication. And I'll always remember, they say, I love it when people tell me, Darren, oh my gosh, I feel like you're a fortune teller or something. And I say, I really wish I had that gift, Aaron. Like I wish I was like one of those people that were super clairvoyant and they could read people. I'm really good at reading assessment results.
Mm, mm.
And that started our coaching partnership. And I've been with Russell ever since in some capacity.
It's amazing, isn't it? And from 50 books, from a book you said don't buy.
Yeah.
And the key message there is it only takes one connection because you never know who that person is connected with. And it's very easy to say, oh my God, nobody's reading my books, or nobody's listening to my podcast, or nobody's reading my blogs. But you don't know who is actually reading because a lot of people read things, but they don't actually put their hand up and say, hey, well done, that's great, or like things, but they're stalking, they're watching. And if you're consistent and if you believe in what you're doing and if you build some capability around that, you just never know where it's going to lead. So stay in the game, which is,
So
and I
true.
can imagine how back then, how how challenging was it? Was it feeling because it's not easy. The entrepreneurial journey is not easy. Sales is not easy. Building a career is not easy. You're going to have to build some resilience. Were there times where it was like, what am I doing this for?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Especially, I'm 47 and I've been coaching since I was 21. And I have clients, Darren, who are in their like late 20s and they're making millions.
Yeah,
And I've never, Russell calls me like half of an entrepreneur in that I have an entrepreneurial spirit, but coaching is my passion. And I've never fallen in love with the marketing aspect and the go-getter aspect of building, let's say, an empire.
yeah.
I've fallen in love with diving deep one-on-one with people. And in fact, when Russell told me a year ago to get on podcast, I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. So uncomfortable, but I will. So even getting on podcasts and emailing people like you and going, hey, will you have me on, it's been outside my comfort zone. And I think that the biggest challenge that I've experienced as a coach, because a lot of people are like, oh Mandy, you're so lucky because you got the connections. I am very grateful and I am very blessed. And I would say the biggest challenge for me, and I've witnessed so many other entrepreneurs and coaches, is the compare game.
Yeah,
And it's been recently that I consciously have given myself the gift of not falling into it, not feeding it. I still can get tripped up because I'm
yeah,
human.
yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that's cost me the most peace is when I've compared myself to my clients and go, oh, who am I to be your coach? Because you're making millions and what I make, you write off in taxes. It's like, so, and that has really gotten into my head. But then I realized, oh, if I was just like them, I would be them. I
Hmm.
wouldn't be doing my job. I wouldn't be doing my role. And I look at my role in a way similar to like a therapist on a police force. There's a reason why they're a therapist on the police force and they're not, let's say, a police officer,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so it's like, yes, I'm entrepreneurial and I understand the industry, but I am a psychological, emotional, mental support for these high octane, insane, let's go climb Everest on with flip-flops people who are so brave. That's who I love to take care of because they're
yeah,
really making a difference in the world and we
yeah,
need them.
yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, and I'm so glad you shared that. From all the hours you've done, and obviously you've just mentioned you've been working with people who are super successful. It's almost like, well, you can't distill it down into one key lesson, but what are some things that you've learned from working with these guys that you've been able to apply for yourself, but can leverage and speak to others? So people who are ambitious but haven't they and the comparison game is huge, right? We all do it, and it's really dangerous. But
Mhm.
is there some key lessons you've learned from working with a lot of these great leaders, entrepreneurs, that has helped you in your development, but you pay forward to people who perhaps are just starting out, who are on the entrepreneurial journey, or they're wanting to jump into a leadership role because they see there's a an ability to influence more readily. Are there some key themes or key themes that sort of stand out?
Yes, such a beautiful question. Thank you for asking it, because and this is the reason why I love personality assessments. The number one objection I get to personality assessments is I don't want to be put into a box. And this is what I say back very playfully and lovingly is you're already in one. You just don't know it. And your box is worse than the box of an assessment because you don't, most people don't realize the superpowers they have within them, and it's not enough to go, you're so much more powerful than you real. Like, just saying that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But when you take these assessments, like I just talked to a beautiful young woman today for the first time. She's 18 years old. She lives in New York City. And I read her profile and she got really quiet. It was just over the phone, was over Zoom. And I asked, are you okay? And she goes, God, I feel like you really see me. Thank you.
Mm.
And most people don't know what their superpowers are. I like to compare it to the movie Jumanji,
Yeah.
with The Rock and Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black. And if someone who's listening to this haven't seen it, it's about these kids that play a video game and they go into the video game and they're these avatars. And then they show what their superpowers are and their kryptonite. And what I found for entrepreneurs who are A, not only successful, but B, are actually genuinely, authentically enjoying the journey. Yes, there's challenges. Yes, there's
Mm.
days that you're like, can't I just work at Starbucks as a barista, please? Because this is too much. Like, everybody has those days where like, I just want to throw in the towel. I wish I could just get, collect a paycheck and have a BBQ on the weekend. I get it. Everybody has that. But when someone knows, oh, these are my superpowers, this is easier for me than it is for most people. And this is my kryptonite.
Mm.
This weakens me. Once you become aware of that, it's so much easier to make decisions. It's so much easier to not resist the nature of who you are. And my favorite thing is, Darren, is that sets up people to go, okay, this is the environment I need to be in. There's people who are kind of like a penguin and they're living in the tropics and they're wondering why they hate the heat so much. And everyone's like, why are you complaining? And it's because they're a penguin and they need to be in the Arctic. There's people who are in sales that need to be engineers. There's people who are engineers that are actually musicians.
Yeah.
We weren't set up to win with this. And that's why I love this conversation.
It's so as you're talking, I was just thinking about a podcast I was listening to this morning actually, and they were talking about the fact that not all salespeople should be in sales. Just like you worked out, you shouldn't have been an admin, right? You deserve to be in
Yes.
coaching. And I love your thoughts then because I've built sales teams and I've obviously ran sales teams for many years. And uh, the danger we run as certainly as sales leaders is we often bring people in who remind us of ourselves because birds of a feather will flock together, and we often see sales teams being built that become one dimensional, and we don't have diversity. So, can we talk about the power of assessments as it relates to building teams, and whether it's an entrepreneurial team, whether it's a sales team, the power that the assessments can bring, and particularly when you know what are the characteristics that you're looking for in a team that becomes high performing? Why
Oh,
is assessment so important?
such a beautiful question. And it's interesting because my beloved is also a sales expert like you. And he has a classic sales personality, but he also recognizes that other personality types can do it. What I have found, because most people say, like with disc sales, you need to be a high DI.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good general rule, although I've known some incredible salespeople who are high SCs.
Hmm.
And so they have a very different approach, though. And so they need different types of training.
Yeah.
I find that what I look for when it comes to making sure that you're going to enjoy it and shine, number one is your values.
Yeah.
Because what I found that whenever I have a client that says that they're blue or a little depressed, I always look at their values. One of my favorite stories is I had a client where uh, he was in his mid 80s. He was still to this day the oldest client I've ever worked with. And he said, Mandy, I don't know if you even want to work with me. I'm knocking on death's door. I mean, he was hilarious. And he said, the reason why I'm working with you is my wife says that you're really great and I'm a little blue. And I'll always remember he said a little blue. And I was like, oh. And all I did with this guy is I looked at his values, and his number one value was leadership.
Yeah.
And I asked him, what did you do for, work? And he was the VP of this huge company. He was in charge of over thousands of people. He loved it. He said, quote, my job was fun. He used the word fun, like he loved it. And he had been retired for 12 years and he was bored. And I told him, I said, your number one value is leadership. You need to lead something. He's like, Mandy, I'm 85. What am I going to lead? I go, I don't care what you lead. You need to get involved in something. I go, you don't have to have a job as a VP of a company unless you want to, but that's what you value and you're not leading anything. You need to get involved with something. So he got involved with this local Kiwanis, and within 6 months, he was the president, and he was like, I'm so much happier. And it was like, he had to have something to be in charge of. And I told him, I go, you're going to need to be in charge of something until your last breath, because that's just who you are. And then it's like the lights went on and he didn't have the shame that he had, because he was like, what's wrong with me? I'm not enjoying my retirement. So it's that kind of thing where values. So when you ask the question about teams, I find that when it comes to making sure the person has the right seat on the bus, there's three main factors. Number one is this going to fulfill them? Which most entrepreneurs and business owners don't look at it that way. But I say, hey, what's in it for you is you're going to have a loyal, dedicated, forever and ever person. If your job role and your company and the environment fulfills them, they're going to not only be good at their job, they're going to be addicted to it. Does that sound good? Okay. So that's like number one is the values. The second is, are they set up to win to do this? So like I joke, but it's true. I'm not set up to win to do admin. Could I do admin? Darren, barely. And so it's like, there's people who, you would never want me to be a CPA or work in accounting or bookkeeping or admin, anything like that. So it's like someone that, as you know, was a low C. So it's like, are they set up to win for what are the skills for the job? That's number two. And then number three has to do more with environment. And this has to do more with, I really love the strengths, the Clifton strengths for this. So like what does Mandy do primarily throughout the day is I'm talking to people. I have a lot of relational strengths. It feeds me. It gives me energy. I wake up, I'm actually excited. I love that podcast that you referred to earlier before we got on Every Day's Saturday. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And that's how it feels for me. I'm like, I love what I do. I don't have the Sunday scaries because I've been very fortunate to do what I love. And I know it's because it feeds my strengths. So that's the third thing is, does the environment feed your strengths? Someone who's very strategic needs to be thinking. Someone who's very influencing needs to be influencing. So, someone that's high executing. I have a girlfriend. She's got almost all top 5 executing. She's like the best executive assistant you could imagine. She's always doing tasks, always having to have something to do. If I had her job, I'd be in a stretcher because that would just exhaust me. So does that make sense?
It does. And that's what the power of assessments are. And there are a lot of organizations now putting people through as part of their, maybe not just the onboarding process, but the pre-onboarding process as part of the recruitment process for some form of assessment to try and figure out what are these people's strengths, what are their areas of, focus and areas for development. So it's absolutely critical. I love that. You're in a stretcher and she's loving doing the tasks.
It's so true. Like she loves it. And I told her, I'd say there's not enough Xanax in the world for me to be able to take to do what you do. There's no way. And I would hate it. And I think that that's something that we need to just create the space that it's okay to suck at certain things. It's okay to not like certain things versus having shame around it or making up a story like 19-year-old Mandy was starting to make up a very dangerous story that it had something to do with my intelligence.
Mm.
When it would be 2 years later, I was coaching people 2, 3 times my age.
Yeah.
And I was doing a good job at it, which that felt really weird at the time. But now I understand I was in the right role.
So let's talk about that because you started really young, and no doubt you would have had to have dealt with some ageism challenges, and dare I say it, maybe also some gender-based challenges as well. Um,
Yes.
what do you say to people? Because you there's a school of thought that says in order to be credible in the marketplace, you need to have a track record, you need to be a certain age, you need to have some grey hair, etc., etc. You need to have gone around the block a few times. Um, but if you've got the intelligence, if you've got the awareness, if you can ask great questions, if you've got the, I guess, the emotional intelligence to be able to be curious enough to serve another person and to be able to watch and see the patterns, doesn't matter how old you are.
Oh, man, that is a complicated question, Darren. And I'm going to really, I'm going to be as honest and mindful as I can about it. If it's okay, I want to answer it and then completely contradict myself. Is that cool?
Please.
I'm personally so grateful that that Tony gave me the opportunity at such a young age. I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have, like you said, the track record and the credibility, and I wanted it so bad. And so I'm so grateful for it. And I know that I did help people, and I know that I did make a difference. I also know I caused damage, not intentionally, but I know that I also caused psychological damage because there was so much that I was unaware of, that we coaches were unaware of around mental health, around anxiety, very, very ignorant. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for my life experience now because I know, I mean, it'd be weird if I couldn't say that I'm a better coach today than I was back then. Uh, I do believe I saw a funny meme, maybe you've seen it, where it says, I wish I had the confidence of a 25-year-old life coach. And I thought, oh my gosh, that just cracked me up because I thought of, I was 21 and thought I had life figured out. And oh, I had no idea. Uh, so I'm so grateful that I had that experience. At the same time, that Mandy was very green and very naive and didn't have the life experience and the compassion that I have today. I would say the
Mm.
biggest difference between me today and the Mandy at 21 is compassion. Do I believe that you can have that at 21? You bet. So I would answer that question yes and no. I do believe there is, in our culture, we have such a weird relationship with age. If you think about it, it's like, yes, my dad has said his doctor has to have gray hair, otherwise he's not going. So there is like that beauty of respect, of experience, and time in the saddle. But then people get to a certain age and then we don't want anything to do with them, and there's
Yeah.
there's a lack of respect.
Yeah.
And then there's a most like a worship of youth, and not realizing, oh, this person actually probably has something to teach me, right? And so I would say that depending on who you are, I'm a huge believer, and please let me explain this because it's going to sound like a Disney quote, but I'm a huge believer in following your heart.
Hmm.
And what I mean by heart is not your emotions, but that internal compass that we all have. Einstein said that intuition is the most valuable tool. He also said that imagination's more important than knowledge. And what I've learned to believe is that what Einstein was talking about was not the monkey mind of did I leave the stove on, but what he was talking about was we all have access to this higher intelligence that we can't see with our eyes, hear with our ears, and feel with our hands. That we all have access to this. And if we give ourselves the chance to access it and trust it, magic happens, miracles happen. Life can flow in a way that it just doesn't flow when we resist that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's an art in itself. So that's a very long-winded, different way to answer your question. I think it really depends. And that's what comes up for me.
I love that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking um, intuition. And I was actually having a conversation yesterday. I was doing a group coaching with a company yesterday, and they wanted to, and it was an open forum. You could ask me anything. I've been doing leadership programs with them, and I said, right, this session is you got 2 hours with me, and you can ask me absolutely anything, right? And
Oh.
they wanted to talk about mindset. So we delved into mindset, and I had to be careful because these guys weren't, uh, I guess, intellectual giants, and I'll say that respectfully, blue collar, but really good people. And we delved into mindset, but I asked the question and I said, when you are asked, what do you do? What do you respond with? And they say, well, I'm a supervisor, I'm a team leader, I'm a leader, I'll do this, right? But I said, what if I asked you, who are you? How would you answer that? And they said, what? Nobody's asked me that. And I said, well, here's the thing. We've all got like a self-image, and our self-image is, as you said, it's your internal compass. So it's about who are you. So I spend a lot of time with leaders, not just on the technicalities of what you need to do as a leader in terms of the frameworks and the process and stuff like that. I work with them on who are you as a leader and why are you a leader. So to your point, what is your internal compass? What is your internal value system? Who are you? What's your self-image? Because your self-image will project out into the world. And I said, your team is a reflection of you. So if you're not liking your team, then go have a look in the mirror.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Because so what I want to ask you there is I mean, it's sort of a loaded question, and I apologize for that. But how important is self-awareness from a leadership point of view? Whether you're leading a team in a corporate, whether you're leading an entrepreneurial team, whether you're leading yourself and leading your family, right? How much emphasis do you place on self-awareness?
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. I think it's actually easier than the age one. Uh, so thank you for that. There's a great book if anybody wants to get into I call it the Marines of Meditating. It's a 10-week self-study book, and it's called the Presence Process. And it's written by a beautiful man by the name of Michael Brown. And Michael Brown has one of the most just heart-wrenching and inspiring stories. He had these cluster migraines that no one could cure. He wanted to commit suicide. He tried so many things. He's in so much pain. And then he found this meditation technique that freed him. And I've done it myself. I've had only a few clients able to do it. I've recommended it to so many, but the mind has so much resistance to meditation. And in that book, Michael says awareness is the only tool required for authentic transformation. And so when you say, how important is awareness? I say, it is everything. If you're not aware, that is so dangerous. And that's why I can say, with compassion, but also truth, that the Mandy at 21 to really 27, 29, I was causing psychological damage to my clients because I was not self-aware
Right.
at all. I mean, I was very little self-aware. I had the ego the size of China. And it's probably also why I got hired with Tony Robbins and why I fit into that culture, because I was like, I know what I'm doing. And I had no idea what I was doing. And now I just know that I don't know all the time. Like
Yes.
now it's like I've got my teeth kicked in by life, and it was like, oh yeah, now I get why Socrates said, all I know is I know nothing. Now I get a little bit more of that. And so I think awareness is everything, Darren. Like I'm constantly, my guy and I, wow, I didn't know that about myself last Wednesday. I
Yeah.
just learned that. Like, and it is it requires humility, it requires courage, and it requires buckets and buckets and buckets of compassion, because it's uncomfortable, but it's
It is.
also liberating, and it's the only way that I would want to live.
Well, it just brings to the surface the fact that life is actually a journey, just like success is a journey. It's not the destination. And to quote the great Jim Rohn, it's who you become along the way. That's not the end result. That's the most important thing. And do more work on yourself than you do on your job, which is fascinating. Which brings me to another question I just thought of when you were talking about that. And you mentioned before that people have been saying to you, "Oh, why are you going to get me to do a disc? Because you're going to put me in a box." And you said, "Well, you're already in a box." What do you say to people around assessments where they look at the assessment and they say, yes, this is me, and then they hold on to that as like a safety blanket? My personal approach is it gives you an insight into how you are, what your behavior is, what your energy type is, but you have elements of all four that you should have the adaptability and the capability to become a chameleon based on situation. What do you say to people that hang on to the assessments and almost have that become their identity?
Such a beautiful question because it's I believe everybody has a process and a journey to go through. I'm reading the book Let Them by Mel Robbins because it just everybody and their dog was talking about it. And I thought, okay, I'll read it. And I'm like, oh, well, now I know why everybody and their dog's talking about it. It's a really good book. And I thought, well, this would have been helpful during this situation and that situation where I like tried to control and so I first say that if someone is really attached, and they're like, this is, I'm a high D and this is the way I am, let them, like, if you try and change them. Now, if it's a coaching client and they're coming to you and they're in pain and they're asking, like, gosh, well, it's because I'm a low C. Like I've said that I'm terrible with my bookkeeping because I'm a low C for years. And then I realized, okay, that's not very responsible. And so um, I have a financial coach now that I talk. He's from Australia
Okay.
too, and I talk to him once a month. And I get nervous every time before our session because we go over Mandy's money and numbers, and I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And for so long, I've hurt myself because I had the story narrative. Well, I'm a low C, so I'm not good at that. Well, I'm a low C, so I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
And it hurt me. And it took my own journey of self awareness of going, oh, well, that story doesn't serve me anymore. Am I still a low C? Yes, but I'm taking responsibility and I'm getting help from someone who's a higher C to be able to go, Mandy, okay, is this
Yeah.
essential? Like, yes, Phil, it's very essential, you know, to spend money on or whatever it may be. But now, because I'm aware of that and aware that it was hurting me, I think that's when people start to shift, is when they realize, when a high D stops saying, oh, you just have to accept me because I'm a high D. I'm going to be, more mean or blunt. And they realize, oh, this is actually hurting me because it's hurting the intimacy in my relationships. This is hurting the closeness. When that light bulb goes on, that's when the shift can happen.
I love that because you're talking about a person who is a resourceful, DISC, not an unresourceful. This is who I am, so deal with it. If you don't like it, then bugger off. It's and this is happening every single day in business. People hang on to the fact that they are high or they're high S, and they say, well, therefore I am this good at this role, and therefore I can't do that. No. That's that, I'm at pains always when I'm doing profiles for people, and I mentioned before I do the reach profile, which is a slightly different version, and it goes quite deep into certain things. I said it's not whatever the assessment is, whatever the profile is, it is not you. It is an indication of your style, and there might have innate personality traits within it, but you've got to understand you've got the capability to be like that chameleon and be adjustable and adaptable without losing your authenticity, right? That's resourcefulness. That's being emotionally intelligent. It's reading the room. It's being a good human. But don't hang on to the fact that I am labeled as a D, therefore that's all I'm ever going to be, because you'll only ever fit in, therefore, to boxes that are labeled high D. And that's a
That
very
I
small box.
Thank you for sharing that. That you just gave me a gift, and I will quote you on it of, it's not you. And I love how you pause when you say that. Like, it's not you. This is because it's not. Like, that's why I like to use the metaphor of Jumanji. It's like, this is, I'm playing the avatar of Mandy. You're playing the avatar of Darren. We are these complex, beautiful, strange, infinite souls playing this very strange human game. And so it's like, it's wow, we can do so much more. And you're right. And I love that you recognize we are adaptable. And it reminds me of one of my mentors, Eric Lofholm. He says, anybody could do anything for a short period of time. And
Mm.
so it's like, even Mandy can do like admin and numbers for a short period of time. But if I had to do that 40 hours plus a week, I would just be miserable. So I
Yeah,
think it's like looking at it that way as well.
totally. And be adaptable. And what that brings into is identify your values, identify your strengths, and what you're good at. I love to ask you this. I know you've got to go shortly, but I love to ask you a question around passion versus strengths.
Ooh.
Now, your thoughts on that in terms of because a lot of people out there say, "Oh, just follow your passion, right? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life." And I've had a number of conversations with entrepreneurs and business leaders that say, "Would you rather work on the areas that you're really good at, or would you rather work on things that you're passionate about that you may not necessarily be good at?" So I know it's a sort of an overarching sort of big question, meta question, but your thoughts on working in areas of passion versus working in areas of strength?
Well, I have a very strange answer to your question because of my own journey and witnessing so many unique lives. Like I love that I've got to enter the world of I've worked with a couple of billionaires. I've also worked with some stay-at-home moms that just wanted to lose weight and be attracted to their husbands. I've worked with college students. They're like, I don't know who I am. I've worked with people who were in Hollywood who just got eaten alive by the press. All just like such unique worlds that I've got to like go
Yeah.
into and like, wow, this is cool and fascinating. And what I found when it comes to passion versus strengths is first off, is it really your passion? Is it your
Mm.
authentic passion, or is this a trauma response? Are you trying to prove to the world, love me, dad, just love me because dad didn't love me? Is it a trauma response or is it really your calling? Because it's a very different journey when it's a trauma response that can masquerade as a passion.
Mm.
And oh my goodness, when you go down that, and some people, we just got to go down that journey and skin our knees and elbows and go, oh, wow, that was
Yep.
painful. Now I know, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I find that there's a very big difference between something that is a genuine calling, like Leonardo da Vinci had, like, this is my calling. Celine Dion, she was meant to sing, she was meant to give us her beautiful voice. It's like
Yep.
there's a difference between a genuine soul calling passion and something that might kind of feel like a passion. It's almost like a toxic relationship that's
Yep.
actually trauma masquerading. So the first thing we need to do is we need to discern that. And that takes awareness, that takes self-awareness, that takes a willingness to look at ourselves and then not take ourselves so seriously. So I would say the first thing is to get clear on that. Because here's what I found, and I'm curious your response on this, Darren, is if it's your genuine passion and calling. Like I've done some things that I thought I was passionate about with
Yep.
businesses because I wanted to make some money and make some money some fast, but it really wasn't my passion. It was a trauma response of wanting to fit in and look successful. That's what it was. And it didn't work. Thank goodness it didn't
Mm.
work. When I am true to myself and true to why I'm here and who I am, it flows. And guess what? It's in perfect alignment with my strengths.
Yep.
When I did other things that I thought were my passion, but it was really for the quote unquote wrong reasons, it wasn't my strengths.
Yep.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I remember one of my earlier mentors, she used to ask the question, um, would you do what you do at 3 o'clock in the morning at no notice?
Oh,
And if the
wow.
answer is yes, then it's an indication that it's something that you are born to do. And I was actually part of a mastermind with her where a group of us who were selected facilitators, we spent a weekend with her in a facility, and she literally had us doing that at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up and just going bang, right? And it was a test. It was a test of, is this really what you want to do? And she said the other thing was really important is, would you do it for nothing?
Yes.
So if you do it for nothing and you do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, then it's an indication that it is a passion that you're born to do, that you're destined to do, that you'll continue to do. Having said that, you need to have some capability and you need to build some competency. And my view then is that it potentially started with a passion, but I had an appetite for it, but I had a skill set for it that the passion and the strength sort of continued to evolve to the point where now I'm not going to do anything else ever.
Yes, I love how you even use your hands with going up like that. One
Yeah,
hand.
because it
And I
evolves. Yeah.
agree. Yes, yes. I think that's really beautiful. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's sometimes that I love coaching and I love what I do. I don't know if I would have done it every single day at 3 a.m. or if I would have been, I think it's okay to also kind of like marriage, recognize that there's times that are going to feel a little bit more challenging because I look at, I went through a very painful growth spurt at 27 when one of my best friends lost her husband,
Yeah.
but it changed me as a coach and it was extremely painful. And there was a time period that I started to doubt if I even wanted to coach.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you're married to the, let's say, the right partner and it's good, but you're going through like a test and it's more challenging, but it doesn't mean that the answer is necessarily divorce. It
Mm.
is, you just got to weather the storm. So I think it's looking at that as well.
Yeah. And being prepared to go on the journey because it is the hero's journey, isn't it, really?
It
Which
is. It is the hero's journey. I love that you bring that up and say that. Yes.
yeah. Hey, this has been an awesome conversation. I know you've got a dinner date to get to.
Thank you, Darren. I've
Love
I've really enjoyed this, sincerely.
it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. For people who want to learn more about you and to connect with you and get access to be able to do assessments and learning more about assessments, where's the best place for them to do that, Mandy?
Understandingpersonality.com is the best place to get started. If they want to connect with me, they could email me directly, mandy@mandykeene.com.
Perfect. Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes and highly recommend people reach out to you because you're a superstar. You're a bundle of joy and keep up the
Aw.
awesome work. And thanks again for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you, Darren. This was lovely. I really appreciate it.
All the best.
Bye.